So today I'm going to be talking a lot about the two first lessons that Davis gave to us um, for the beginning lesson. The sort of first lesson that Davis ever gave us uh, as a project. So our first task that Davis gave to us was to create a program that simply printed a string to the console that said my favorite thing or my favorite blank is blank. Now there's a variety of ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you how I did it, and then I'm going to show you guys a more basic way of doing it. And I know that's a little backwards, but I think it's a good idea to see what you can accomplish and then go back and look at the beginning sort of framework for it. So I always start my code with three basic lines, including my name, when the code was created, and when it was last updated. Um, this is just good programming practice, and it's definitely not required, but it's more readable and it's going to look better for things like AP tests and whatnot. I know that the way that I write my code is going to be different than how other people write it, and that's fine. It's sort of like handwriting. You can write however you want. It doesn't matter if you capitalize everything or not in certain cases. But spaces, how you do your comments, how you do your where you put your curly brackets, all that stuff is a lot about personal preference. I write mine to Google standard. They follow a very strict format to how their code is written. I personally find it more readable, um, and I'm sure you guys will as well. So we'll go ahead and get started with this first program. So I have my title up here, which has my name, when it was created, and when it was last updated. And then I've imported a Java utility known as a scanner. And what a scanner is it is something that allows you to utilize an input system that is connected to your computer. So for instance, my keyboard that I have in front of me and the keyboard that you will have in front of you is a scanner. And we'll get to that in a little bit on this line here. And then we jump down and we begin the class. It's just a public class, my first program, and then I put a space between the brace and my comment, and then I put a space between the two lines and my words. It's just easier to read, and we can actually get rid of that. And I don't know, I find it more easy to understand. We drop down a line, and then we have a public static void main, which is an arbitrary name. You can name it whatever you really want. It's not going to matter. So you can name it like taco. That's fine. You've just created a public static void called taco. But I'm going to leave it as main. It's an arbitrary name. And it consists of a string array and an args. And an array is just a list of whatever type of variable you want to have in it. But it's obviously looking for strings because we've said it's a string array. And an argument, meaning it's going to look for objects that are inside of it. And I comment here, we're beginning the class and beginning method main. These are really important comments, so you should just get used to doing them when you start writing your code. It's going to be looked for on the AP test. So I have another comment here. Variable declarations begin here, and we're going to go into scanners. So the way that you initialize objects, they're called, is you do a name of whatever you're trying to declare, whether it be a type of data like an integer, a boolean, or a double, or an object like a scanner or in robotics terms, a talon, which is something that controls motor voltage. Um, but for example, here we have scanner. So I've imported the scanner up there. Now, if I got rid of this, it wouldn't know what a scanner is. So you just go import, all lowercase, java dot, give it a second because it's going to take a while to come up. And then you just do util, java.util.scanner. Just like that, and it's lowercase. So there you go. I've now imported the scanner utility, and you can hover over anything that you import and it will tell you more about it. And then if you want to learn more about it, you can hold down control and then click on scanner, and you can see the actual code that creates the scanner object, but that's a little bit more advanced. So I've put what the object is that I'm creating, and I've given it a name. I'm just calling it input because this is what, people are going to type on the keyboard like that. And those types of values are inputs that you're giving to the computer. So I just called it input. You can name it user input. You could name it dumb input. You could name it burrito. Any of that works in the grand scheme of things. So I'm pretty sure I spelled burrito wrong. There we go. That was bugging me. So it's good naming practice to have the first word all lowercase, and if you add anything after, like input from user, everything else should have capitals. And it's referred to as camel case because these look like little camel humps. Again, you don't have to do it like that. You can do input from user. That's fine. But it's generally good programming practice to capitalize the second letter or the second word. And then I'm saying the scanner input is equal to, meaning I'm giving it a value, I'm assigning it something. A new scanner, so I need to tell it that it's new. We can hover over it. You can read more about what the new scanner does if you click on it and hover over. And then we're creating a new scanner. And then normally what happens is you just sort of have the parentheses. And you could leave it like that, except, oh, wait, it's going to have an error. And if you hover over it, it's going to tell you you need to put something inside of it. The easiest way to do it is just do system.in. It's just like system.out, which is the most basic line of code you can write, except instead of outputting information, it's inputting information and storing it in memory. So this line right here, this very line that I've just written, is creating a scanner object called input and saving it in memory. And whatever input is stored to that is going to be saved in the same memory. So if I input the number 5, it's going to store the integer 5 to the same memory that is holding the scanner object input. And then if I say I want to see what's in 5 and I do like a system.println input, it's going to display the number 5 because I've saved that value. So next we're going to move on to variable data types. The most common one is going to be an integer. An integer is just a whole number, 1, 5, 24, 36. So I've made a couple integers. They're not doing anything really, just number of integers. We also have booleans, which are true-false statements, but they use the numbers 1 and 0. So if something returns true, it's going to be 1, and if something returns false, it's going to be 0. So you could do a lot of things can run with if statements, but in terms of like actual real-world application, when we program the robot for the robotics team, we use an Xbox controller to control the robot, and the like A, B, X, Y buttons that are on that game controller are all booleans. When you press that button in, it's going to return a value of 1, of true. And then when we let go, it's going to return false. So I can do a check and say if button A equals true, equals true, because we want to check and see what it is and not assign it something, then run this line of code, otherwise don't do anything. So that's what a Boolean is useful for. And yeah, we can do a couple other things with print lines and Booleans. Floats and doubles are kind of interchangeable. To be honest, a float and a double are the same thing. A double is a number that has a floating point or a decimal place after. And a float, in C++ terms, was a number that had a decimal point after. So it's sort of like a leftover thing from Java. I don't ever use floats, so I can't really give you a good explanation on that. But if you Google Stack Overflow, and I'll put the link in the description to the Stack Overflow website, you can search float, and there will be plenty of posts made by programmers explaining what a float is in terms of Java. So that's a very useful source to go to. And if you're working on any program for class, that is a perfect utility for you to go to, see how other people are handling that problem. I highly recommend Stack Overflow. So like I said, double is just a number with a decimal point. And then strings are, unlike anything else, they don't come up purple, and that's because they're not a data type. Strings are just a line of characters, a line of words. So there's two ways to declare it, or to instantiate a string. Both of them need to be declared as a string, as seen here. And both of them need an arbitrary name, and both of them equal something. Davis's method is to say there's a new string, and then in parentheses you put your string of characters wrapped in quotes. If you do not put the quotes, you're going to get a bug, and it's going to say, what is this? Just imagine the quotes tell the computer that these are words and not code, because you could be writing code, or someone could make a class called this way is dumb, and you could be doing something like this way is dumb dot get reason why, which would be a command that someone could program for a class called this way is dumb. So just remember, wrapping text in quotes makes it into a string of characters, and it's going to literally print out these very words. I prefer to do it this way. Just string hello equals, wrap your text in quotes, and end your line with a semicolon. Everything needs to be ended in a semicolon except for loops. Those need to be started and ended with curly braces. So I have a couple print statements here. The most basic one is obviously a print line. So if I go ahead and run this, you'll see down here, it's going to give you a whole bunch of information. So disregard this this first statement right here, this printf. We'll come back to this. I want to talk about the system.out.println, which is this part right here, I believe, in number value, because we're displaying this value right here. So first of all, integer 1, I'm just saying println integer 1. So literally the code is going to print out whatever is stored to the memory of integer 1, which we assigned the integer value of 500. So it's going to display that. Println Davis method, it's going to print the string Davis method just like that. This way is dumb. Hello world, it's going to print this line right here. So both of these functions, both ways of writing these two statements are the same. True false 1, it's displaying whatever Boolean value is here. So if I change this to false and run it again, it's going to display false instead. So that's how you can display a Boolean value. And then number value, I put the decimal place 2.71. So it's going to show 2.71. Now if I change this to just 2 and do it again, it's going to go 2.0, because remember, a double is a float value. It needs to display a floating point. And there are ways to get around that later, but I'll go into more detail on that in another lesson. Now we're going to get to another part of using print lines. So println integer 1 plus integer 2, as the comment says, it just adds two values together. Integer 1 being 500, integer 2 being 200, and it displays down here the final product. So you can do math within print lines, and you can do something like, wrap in quotes, my favorite number is, plus wrap that in parentheses for clarity reasons, and then we run it again, and now it's changed down here. My favorite number is 700. So you can add strings, and then after you end the quote, you can add something of any variable value, or you can do math, and it will simply fill in that value to the space that you left off right here, which is nice. And then down here is the actual assignment Davis asked us to write. System.out.println. My favorite part about this project is how easy it is. This right here confuses a lot of people. This is simply syntax for new line. So anytime it sees this, it's going to drop a line. So if you see right here, it goes, my favorite part about this project is how easy it is, period. And it ends. But I could go, now, comma, it should be easy for you too. And I run it again, it's going to drop a line right there and start writing. But if I got rid of this and just did a space and ran it again, it would stay on that line. So that's what new line does. Very helpful to use. So coming back up to printf. Printf is found on page 45 of the textbook, I believe. And what it stands for is formatted data. So it's going to print formatted data that you have either created or create within that print statement, because you can do math. So printf is going to look for two things. It's going to look for a string, and then it's going to look for an argument that fills in what you need to in a string. So for instance, you have run this %d times period %n quote. So that's going to look really confusing. This is notation for formatted data, which is an integer. So if you look, times run is an integer. It's a work in progress. I haven't really finished it right now because I'm lazy. But if we go integer 1, what the hell is my cat doing? Integer 1, and we run it again, you have run this 500 times. So basically what happens is it's going to say you have run this formatted data amount of times, formatted new space. So this actually creates a new line. If you look, it breaks right here, but if I remove this and I run it again, it's going to display the integer 1 value on that same line. So when working with printf, anything that's like this should be %, at least I believe. Now, this might work. Yeah, so you can still use this, but if you want to do formatted new line, you can. So to clarify, this just is another syntax for new line, but if you want to use this one that we did in println, it works just the same. So sometimes there are multiple ways of doing the same process. But we can also do something like this. You have run this %d times. %d is my favorite number. And we can add a comma after our first argument, and we can add integer 2. And we can run this. And as you see, you have run this 500 times. 200 is my favorite number. So it's going to go down and read it like a list. So it's going to say, you have run this. Okay, I need to put formatted data here. Times. I need to put formatted data here is my first number. formatted new line. And the computer is going to go, what's my first formatted data I include? Integer 1. What's my second one? Integer 2. And then it fills in the blanks. So you can imagine this is like a word bank, and then these are sentences, and the computer picks the correct one to fill in to make the word bank make sense. But we could change it and go integer 2, integer 1, and we could run it, and you'll see you have run this 200 times. 500 is my favorite number. So printf is really a powerful statement, as I'll be showing you in my second program, which was our second task that was assigned to us in class. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that now. So for second program, we were told we needed to have a bunch of statements that printed a sentence. My favorite food is, my favorite color is, my favorite movie is, and my favorite music group is. So a lot of people went about doing it this way. They created a string. So ignore these top strings right here. A lot of people went sentence 1 equals my favorite food is I don't know, popcorn. And then simply did a basic system.out.println sentence 1. And then when they ran the program, my favorite food is popcorn. But I don't like doing that simply because it is a lot of writing in these top portions. And a lot of times when you're reading through your code, you want your variables to have as little information in it as possible, and you want to write the bulk of your information in whatever executable command you are writing. For instance, in our case, system.out.printf is where the bulk of my writing is, and then I just want to see what the variables are up above, so I can get a quick glance and understand what's going on. So I created 4 strings: food, color, movie, music. Simple stuff. Now I'm using printf. My favorite food is formatted string. So there's a couple different types. I'm going to go ahead and make a comment. There's a couple different types of formatted information. There's formatted D for integers. There's formatted floats for doubles. And there's formatted strings for, you guessed it, strings. So take note of that. Put that into your notes as you will. Those are really important for printf statements. So I just did my favorite food is formatted string, period, new line, food. My favorite color is formatted string, new line, color, movie, music, etc. Run the code. My favorite food is pizza, my favorite color is light blue, my favorite movie is Deadpool, and my favorite music group is Pegboard Nerds. So that's how I handled the bulk of those 2 lessons. And everybody's going to handle them a little bit differently, and that's fine. So I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to create the my first program plus the my second program right now, just to show that there are different ways of doing each of the tasks assigned to us. So I'm going to call this YouTube YouTube episode 1 tutorial. And finish that. And then once we've created our new Java project, we go new, and everything is made inside of a class. And the name is going to be first and second program. Now, good programming practice is your class all first letters of every word is capitalized. Now, when I create this, it's going to create a public class, first and second program. It's going to have open curly brace and a place to write code, and then a closed curly brace. And you have to write the public static void main string args. And so you should get used to memorizing that statement. for the purpose of the test coming up. So I would go through, rewrite some of these codes. They're really simple. They're quick to do, and you can memorize some of the things. But for future reference, if you're trying to get through this in a rush, just click this little box right here. It'll automatically generate the public static void main for you, which saves you time, but I'm not going to do that. So here we are. I'm inside of my class, so it's always just good programming practice. Put my name. Created. This is the 9th of September. You don't have to follow a strict format like created 9th of September or created 26 August 2016, but I'm going to put the 2016. And then I usually have an updated tab, but we're not going to worry about it. Another cool thing you should probably start getting the hang of is like calling it like first and second demonstration. So this is just a way of like when someone loads up your code, they immediately know what's going on. But anyways, okay, so we're gonna drop a line, drop another line. So public static void main string square brackets args open brace, bam. And I have an error. What did I do? Public static void main string class. I don't know what I did wrong. Well, this is a good chance to learn. Have an open brace, close brace. Open brace, close brace. Public class, public static void. So sometimes, this is actually a perfect example of when things can just go wrong. Because you're like, what happened? I added a comma. And look what happened. As soon as I removed that comma, all those errors went away. So you can do the tiniest little error, and that's going to create a whole bunch of other errors from you. And you're probably going to skip over this. So just simply remove that, and we're good to go. So apologies on that. But that's a perfect example. I've been programming for, what, 4 years now? And that's the small type of stuff that'll mess you up. And partially, probably because I haven't been writing it down. I've just been auto-generating it. So get into the habit of just writing it. So we're doing the first program. The first program was to say my favorite blank is blank, right? So I'm going to say variable creation strings. We're going to do string first blank and string second blank. So now we can input whatever we want into here. So first blank, my favorite song is Wham. Let's do artist. I don't know. I'm old-fashioned and lame, I guess. So now we're going to do begin assignment system.out.print. So print is a blanket statement for print, meaning, or for any like system.out. It has no formatted lines. It doesn't show formatted data, but you can do a lot of cool things with it. So we're going to do my favorite space plus first blank plus is plus second blank. And that's it. So we've created two strings, one that says artist, one that says wham, system.out.print, my favorite, and then we're adding on the string of first blank, meaning whatever's in first blank is going to be displayed here, so artist. and then we're going back to creating a string within the print line, is space, and then it's going to display this string right here, wham. And then if we run it, my favorite artist is wham. So make sure you need that space there too. So there you go. So that is literally the first assignment, but there's a couple other ways of doing it. So we're going to do it like this now. System.out.print. Okay. Now you're probably wondering, I mean, what do we do? What are you doing here, Ezra? Well, I'm going to show you a completely advanced method for assignment. I'm going to show you a completely different way of doing this assignment. And this was actually the first way I did it, and I was told that I should not do it this way because it was ahead of what everyone else was doing. So, we're going to say input first blank. Just like that. And I'm going to call this prompt. And we're going to go back up to the top right above our public class and do a import java.util.scanner. Just like that. And we're going to go ahead and create a scanner. Scanner user input equals new scanner system.in. Okay, so I've created the scanner object now. So system.out.print input first blank. Now I'm about to do something that's probably going to confuse some of you, but I'm going to write it out and then explain why I'm doing it and how it works. So give me a moment. Okay. So you're probably wondering, why are you assigning first blank user input.next line, which, as I explained before, the scanner takes actual physical keyboard presses and stores that to a variable. You're probably saying, Ezra, why are you doing that? You already have something assigned to first blank. Well, the beauty of programming is that, yeah, I may have assigned something in the beginning, but I can overwrite it. And it will be different now than it was up here. So up here, it might display my favorite artist in the first blank. But maybe after I input something else, it'll be completely different. Which is actually, I think it's pretty amazing. So I'm going to add a new line there. And I'm going to run this because I think it's going to come out weird. Yeah, okay. So we're going to get rid of that. And then I think if I just do this, is that going to work? No. Plus /n. There we go. Okay. So I went ahead and fixed that. Now we drop down a line. Input first blank. Now you're probably wondering, okay, well, now what do I do? Well, click inside the console, and I can go, God. And it's not going to do anything because I haven't written anything further. But you can see that I inputted something into here. And you can't see it, but right now, first blank has been stored the value of God. But when I run it again, code is read from the top to the bottom. So the computer's going to read that first blank is equal to artist. It's going to override God, just like God overrode artist when I inputted that into this area. So we need to add a print afterwards. So I'm trying to think. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and write the next line of code. Okay, so we're going to ask for another prompt, second blank. equals user input dot next line. And there we go. We're going to record another input to our second blank. Now you might have seen that when I do user input dot next, there's a bunch of different options. Next line is referred specifically to strings. If you wanted someone to input numbers, you would do next int. If you wanted someone to input something that had decimal values, you put next double. So there are different ones. You can actually look at what each one does before you select it. Like so, if I delete this and do dot, it's going to come up with a whole bunch of options that I can do, and I can actually read about each individual one in this sort of like beige area. So if I go next, you're going to see there's next, 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 next line, next big decimal, big integer, boolean, whatever. But we're going to use next line because it works with strings. Then I'm going to do system.out.printf my favorite is %s, period, break line, and then we're going to do first blank, second blank, just like that. And now when I run this, my favorite artist is Wham. Input first blank. My favorite class, AP Computer Science. My favorite class is AP Computer Science. Just like that. And it overrode the initial values I set here when I inputted them via the scanner, or via the scanner. So, records user inputted string final answer. And there you go. That's a more advanced way of doing the first assignment. And I'll go ahead and do it again. My favorite artist is Wham. It read it from the top to bottom. It saw that first blank is equal to artist, so it got rid of class. And it read that second blank is Wham, so it got rid of AP Computer Science. And my favorite friend is Zachary. So when you actually look at it subjectively, it's pretty simple. It's hard to grasp at first, but I recommend just creating a class and trying it out. Just sort of putting lines together, doing system.print. And if you have bugs and errors, that's fine. The beauty of programming is learning how to fix it and getting through it. And when you do, it becomes so much easier to fix problems like that later on. So I'm going to end here. I'm going to recommend that you guys do the MySecond program using the scanner command, just like I showed here. Give it a couple tries. You probably won't get it on the first try. That's fine. No one's going to be perfect. I mean, even you saw I had that little error where I left the comma up here. It just comes with practice, and a lot of it is just muscle memory. So apologies if this video was long or it wasn't very good. I'm still getting used to this. I've never really done this before. But I hope that this was informative and it helped you with the first and second assignment.